what we're doing in Fife in terms of the emergent food projects that we're developing within the community. I work for a small charity in a small village, so this comes from a community-based perspective. So I'm not a farmer, I'm not a food expert, but I hope it will serve to illustrate that good things can happen from small roots, community spirit in the face of climate change and globalisation. So this is where we are. Fife is a small region just north of Edinburgh. It has a population of around 350,000 and it has a mixture of urban and rural settlements. Approximately 135,000 acres are in arable land. And as you can see from this statement, the Scottish Government's ambition is for an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. 25% of greenhouse gas emissions come from food, so clearly the current food system needs a radical change, otherwise these targets will not be reached. A few more facts about Fife and Scottish food. Fife has the highest per capita concentration of obesity amongst children in the UK. Poor diet has replaced tobacco as a principal cause of cancer in Scotland, and approximately 90% of fruit and 50% of vegetables are imported to the UK. And if everyone ate the way we do in Fife, we'd need three planets to survive. So, on to lighter stuff of a festival. I've been working at the Centre for Stewardship for over 4 years, and we've been involved in several projects, but one in particular is this Big Tent Festival. The festival's origins began in 2005, and it was a grassroots response to the G8 summit as it was. Why could or should such issues as climate change and social environmental justice be decided just by an elite group of men? So we decided to hold a festival that would provide communities with the opportunity to come together to exchange ideas, to be inspired by what's happening at a grassroots level, and show ways to reduce carbon footprinting. Since it began in 2006, the festival's grown modestly, attracting over 8,000 visitors a year. A shameless plug for the date for this year's festival. And as we were organising the festival, we increasingly became aware of the importance that food played, and we made a decision to only promote food that was either locally sourced or organic. And it's from the festival that our food programme has really taken off, most notably through a local eating experiment called the Fife Diet. So one of the things that happened at the festival was that 2 years ago, a group of folk got together in a tent and decided to come up with a local eating experiment. The Fife Diet is probably one of the most media-acclaimed community-led projects to have come out of Scotland in years. The diet is the brainchild of one of the centre's staff, Mike Small, and he was inspired by the 100-mile diet, which began in Vancouver, Canada, when a couple chose to spend a year eating only food from a 100-mile radius. But the impetus for getting the diet going came from the Big Tent's food village, when Mike was convinced by the array of local food available that yes, it was possible to start the experiment. So with an extremely small pot of money, about £2,000, Mike initiated a campaign to get Fifers to sign up to a diet of Fife food. And together with his wife and 2 children, he embarked on a year-long experiment, pledging only to eat food that was locally sourced from Fife. Importantly, the dieters use a website and blog to tell each other how it's going, where to get produce, swapping recipes, and keeping alive the enthusiasm and purpose of doing this. So what do they eat? Well, Fife is well endowed for local produce, and there's plenty of fresh fruit, veg, and meat and cereal to keep you going. The word diet, though, with its calorie-counting connotations, is perhaps misleading. This is a celebration of local goodness, not an exercise in self-denial. Being on the diet doesn't mean you're going to be told this is what you must eat, but rather eat food from this region as much as you can, and then tell everybody else how you managed to do it. It's about sufficiency, not self-sufficiency, and it's as much about learning to stop compulsive-driven consumption as it is about localisation. Mike and his family and a group of others ran the diet in its pure form for a year in 2008, and I can remember clear frustrations when the experiment threw up cracks in the whole food system. For example, wheat is grown in Fife, but there's nowhere that turns the wheat into flour, so there's no bread, no pasta. And there was absolute rejoicing when discoveries were made. Fife now has one cheese, and a microbrewery has started up, so they were quite pleased with it. I have to say that when the press had an absolute field today when the Fife diet was launched. Commentators considered that the diet would be a packet of fags and a deep-fried Mars bar. One newspaper columnist branded the project as flakier than a vol-au-vent. Despite the ridicule, or perhaps because of it, the network's grown in strength, and by the end of the experiment in its pure form, there's over 800 members signed up. It's defied the can't-do mentality, and over the past 18 months, ridicule has turned into affirmation and awards. Karen and Mike picked up the best ethical contribution to food from The Observer, and last week they were chosen as the top green champions of Scotland by the Scottish Sustainable Development Forum. The diet has since secured funding from the Scottish Government's Climate Challenge Fund to appoint growing facilitators and network developers. And importantly for our next project, One Planet Food, the Fife diet has helped keep the food agenda at the forefront of national debate. Even the First Minister of Scotland signed up to eat only Scottish food, albeit just for 1 week. So from the Fife diet, we moved to the Centre's latest project, One Planet Food. It's an ambitious 5-year project, partly building on the consumer network developed by the Fife diet. It's funded in part by the Carnegie UK Trust, and its vision is to encourage a sustainable, inclusive food culture. And these are the aims of the project: to make a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. As I've said before, food in Scotland, including production and distribution, accounts for 25% of our greenhouse gas emissions. Research is going to be an essential part to this project, and with the support of St Andrews University, we're convening a research forum to make sure everything we do is grounded in good evidence. But how actually will we do the project? It's a big task, especially as many people do not actually see what's wrong with the current paradigm of going to the supermarket and buying everything you need, regardless of season, regardless of food miles, regardless of packaging. One Planet Food's been started by the Centre of Stewardship. We only have 3 members of staff, and we can't do this on our own, but we've never set out to do it on our own. And the success of the project depends on building a partnership across all sectors: producers, households, schools, communities, local authority, health boards, retailers, caterers, researchers, agricultural advisors, business and the third sector, and probably a lot more. It's also about creating networks and learning from other areas, which is why our connection with the TI and Cultivate is so important. The answer to the challenge of climate change is not one that can be met by a single group. It has to take collective action. And from one idea, other projects and ideas will be sparked. I just want to end with a few examples of what's happened since this has started. We're currently doing a feasibility study to assess whether we can locate an artisan bakery on Falkland Estate. 2 transition groups have formed in Fife. The one in the community of Falkland has been working with us to identify allotment sites in the village. The founder of Bread Matters is making plans to move his business to Falkland. Andrew Whitley is one of the country's leading bakers, and he runs courses showing how easy and rewarding it is to make bread, supporting farmers and celebrating good bread as a way of bringing people together. As part of One Planet Food, we've been asked by the local authority to look at redundant market spaces in urban areas that the council no longer requires. Can we turn them into allotments? How can we get community buy-in? How can we provide training? And finally, we have Flower Power. What you're looking at here is, in fact, the launch of Scotland's first foot-powered mill. And it's created by a product design student, and it will allow you to power millstones by bike power and grind your own wheat into flour. Clearly, this is not going to replace the loaves of bread on Tesco's shelves, but what it is a great example of connecting the local community to local production, and we will be taking the bike and flower power to the big tent and turning out our own bread from there. And one final thought is that